I had some comments on item 13.
Supervisor Miller.
This is the tax case, and it's a request to continue funding expert witnesses against the Raytheon in a property tax dispute case. And we've already funded this group $50,000 previously, and now the county attorney is requesting another $50,000. My concern here is that we continually talk about supporting Raytheon, keeping Raytheon in the community, and the loss is $1.7 million in tax revenue. And the State Board of Equalization agreed with the Raytheon assessment of $22.5 million versus Pima County's assessment of $40 million. I think this would, when we talk about economic development, the importance of our relationship with Raytheon, and even proposing an aerospace defense corridor around Raytheon to be funded by taxpayers via an upcoming bond election, it really concerns me that we continue to sue one of the largest private employers in southern Arizona. And I remember the meeting where we actually purchased buffer zone for $6 million around Raytheon at the risk of losing Raytheon for lack of that buffer zone. So my concern is that we are going to continue suing Raytheon for this tax dispute, and we can't forget that Raytheon pays upwards of $130 million in state and local taxes annually, and this, I think this ongoing litigation gives Raytheon mixed messages about our commitment to supporting them here in the community, and I move to deny any further funding of consultation services from the Brecken-Nava Group.
You're doing that as a
motion.
As a substitute motion for the motion on the table.
Yes, yes, I am.
Mr. Chairman, I'll go ahead and remove my motion, just so withdraw my motion, so that, you know, they can make this nice and clean.
Okay. And that's fine, because I think I seconded your motion.
Okay.
So
Well,
we
I-
need,
I
I'll second the motion. Okay.
Okay. Do you still have a comment?
Excuse me, I have my mic on now. I was going to second to discuss and ask Mr. Huckleberry to explain, and maybe Mr. Straub, first off, the reason for the Brecken-Nava Group amendment, and secondly, where we stand on settling with Raytheon over this, and are these there's not a chance to bind these settlements without further court action, so please let me know, Mr. Huckleberry, what your feelings are on this.
Mr. Huckleberry.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, if it was up to me, we would have settled this a long time ago, but it's not. And I think this is the same issue that came to the board previously, that we were very concerned about continuing the litigation. However, we also had to understand the assessor, as a separately elected constitutional officer, has some authority to pursue an appeal, which is his choice. And and you're the contracting agency, and so you get put in the untenable position of approving, you know, funding litigation against Raytheon that we really don't approve of, but the assessor has his constitutional right to continue, and so that's all this contract is.
Okay. In the background material, it referenced Pima County specifically, so I guess that included the assessor.
It's the assessor.
It's the assessor.
Okay. I still move to deny funding the Brecken-Nava Group.
There's a
Mr.
motion and a second on the table.
There's a motion and a second. Mr. Straub, what would be the result of denial on this item?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, yeah, this I certainly understand this is a bitter pill for the board, but the assessor, I think, is entitled to be able to pursue the litigation he deems necessary. This allows him to do that. But here's the thing. I think as a practical matter, number one, I doubt that they're going to use the full 50. I can't guarantee that. But this is for 2 additional years, and they're trying to settle those 2 additional years, but they need an appraisal for those 2 additional years to be able to go to the table and settle. And I think that that's kind of really, from discussing this with Bill and what the rationale was, that this would allow them to be in a position to meet the appraisal of the other side and sit down and hash this out. I don't think this is going to be going to litigation again, but you know, I can't guarantee that, but I would really doubt that. It seems to me that they're on the path because they've had a court decision with regard to the prior 2 years. It came kind of between where the State Board of Equalization was and where Bill was, probably closer to where this board had recommended before it withdrew from that litigation and allowed Bill to go forward with it. But still, it was about $10 million more than the State Board of Equalization. And this would allow them to finalize this process and just get this thing put to bed finally.
Mr. Straub, Mr. Chairman, if I might just ask, I guess, 2 questions. There has been some settlement in regards to Pima County and Raytheon on more recent years of tax.
You know, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Carroll, I'm not in a position to confirm that. I just don't know. I mean, what they litigated the other.
I do believe there have
Yeah.
been some settlements on some years, but not all. These prior to
I
the
kn-
settlements that have, maybe, go ahead.
I don't know. I just know that since this board had this item before it, I can't remember which 2 years it was. It was the 2 prior years. Maybe it was 8 and 9. And I think this is for 10 and 11. I'm not certain,
Right.
but somewhere. But those were litigated, and then there may be other years that they did settle on. That's probably, you know, I'm not going to dispute that. Bill's not here. He
I
would be
understand.
able to best address those issues.
We
But-
know there's been some movement towards settlement, at
Right.
least, and some settlements occurring between the assessor's office and Raytheon. I believe that all of us at the board level respect that Mr. Staples is a duly elected line officer, but I think there has been resolutions passed before, or at least comments made by individuals that make up a majority of the board, that we would not have acted in the same way legally or professionally. The important thing now is maybe we should gather that information about what has been settled, what needs to continue to be settled, and what's still out there waiting to be addressed, and delay this until the first week in September, so we can get an idea how much. If you say it's not going to be 50,000, how much? I'm with Supervisor Miller in District 1 that, you know, this is sending a mixed message, but please, I'd like to bring some closure, so maybe we should understand from the assessor, maybe you'd like to put it on executive session, how much money exactly is it going to take to get these final appraisals done, to move towards what is a settlement, so we can move on happily down the path into the sunlit open field of Raytheon doing business forever here.
Mr. Chairman,
Supervisor Miller.
if Mr. Staples chooses to continue suing Raytheon, why doesn't he find the money within his budget rather than using county tax dollars to sue Raytheon? I do understand that, but he can pull it out of his own budget instead of pulling it out of our general fund.
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Miller, the costs incurred by the elected official in terms of vindicating whatever their interest is, and in this case, Mr. Staples, whether it be for outside counsel, because we're paying outside counsel costs for this as well, or the expenses necessary, the supporting litigation expenses are properly a county charge. There's case law to that effect. Yes, they are, and he's a general fund. Yeah, he's a yeah.
Well, we have a motion on the floor. Is there any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Supervisor Carroll.
I know there was a motion on the floor to deny this, was it?
That's correct.
Correct.
Mr. Chairman, I think maybe what we should do is ask to delay this until we can get maybe an executive session, an opportunity to have the county assessor, whether he would like to do that in executive session or publicly explain to us what he may need to conclude and to bring closure to these disagreements with Raytheon over their past tax.
That's in the form of a substitute motion. I'll second it.
Then I will make it in the form of a substitute motion that we delay until the first week in September this item to find out further information.
I'll withdraw my motion.
Thank you, Chairman, Supervisor Miller.
Thank you. So now the motion before us Why don't we, just for the sake of clarity, Ray, why don't you make it as a motion as opposed to
Yes,
substitute
sir, I'll
motion?
try to. On reaction to Supervisor Miller's move to deny, I'd like to move instead a substitute motion to review Brecken Nava Group Amendment Number 2 for September 3rd meeting. In both public and executive sessions.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
All right. The motion before us is on continuing item number 13 to the September 3rd Board of Supervisors meeting in both executive and public session. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please signify by saying nay. Ayes have it.